Okay. So, I am going to keep this shit really short this morning. I'm going to allow some people to jump on in here so as I don't feel like I'm doing this shit in vain. And it may just be a little too early, so I might be able to sneak this one in without no problems. Nope, not gonna happen. All right, guys. So we have a group. Good morning, April. We have a clandestine group, and that's just what that's the terminology, right? You have a rogue. Hey, Lori, you have a rogue group of searchers that have essentially disobeyed TBI protocol and what they've asked for. Good morning, Nisi. They've asked no one to be out searching. Now, they can't tell you that if you are searching public property or property that you have permission to search, they cannot tell you no. Now, there is a group out there right now, well, not right now, but hit the thumbs up, guys. There's a group out there right now, predator searching or predator searchers. They searched at the racetrack and they did some other looking around. Hey, Jan. Now, it's cool, right? That is helpful in its meaning, right? But when you have folks that come out and they are trampling around, walking through potential crime scenes with just no readily available discernment on how to collect evidence, right? Stomping, yes. So what you have, guys, is you have a scenario where you have people that are, I'm not saying these are bad citizens. These are good citizens from what I mean, heart looks like it's in the right place. That's all you can really say. But I saw some different materials showing a toy that they had found, and it sure looked at that like that toy was in somebody's hand. Now, what happens when you find an item that has potential evidentiary value? There is a process in which you have to follow in order to collect the evidence. Correct? Hua? So you could find the most important piece of evidentiary value item in a case anywhere, but as soon as you go to handle it incorrectly and the stages of collection evidence haven't been documented correctly, what you now have is junk. You have junk. You cannot go back in time 3 seconds in your video and unpick up the item from the ground. What you have to do, you will see anyone that is doing searches and that is qualified to be doing so. There's certain areas that okay, let me fucking nail it down for you, right? You layman's, stop searching, okay, please. You cannot bring big ass German shepherds that are not qualified to do any sort of work other than just bark. You brought a big ass German shepherd around to trample any sense, any evidence trails, any flora in the area. Like it's contaminated now. You brought a bunch of walkers with boots stomping around and you brought a dog. We know your heart's in the right place, but people, stop searching because you don't know how to do it correctly, right? See, the issue is if you wander or you are directed to an area that has potential evidentiary value, things of evidentiary value, you will first observe the area to identify and assure yourself that you are in that area, right? Then you don't just go trampling on stuff. You set up a grid and you selectively go through each square in the grid, ruling out everything in the contents of that area. You do not poke around. And I've heard, people in the past when I've talked about this, well, Benny, you see cops pick up stuff at scenes and stuff without gloves on? Yeah. Things that don't necessarily need to go through, a lab. Now, a toy that was buried in the dirt probably doesn't need to go through a lab. But what does happen is when there is a piece of evidence that isn't collected correctly, the discovery on that evidence is tainted, right? So now when you try to bring that into the court and have it documented as Exhibit A, whatever, Exhibit Z, you have the chain of command on that particular piece of evidence. So a piece of evidence that has been collected and by someone other than law enforcement, right? We already have a systemic issue in America for law enforcement that are handling tips and leads and evidence incorrectly, right? Excavation, yes. It isn't an excavation. You don't start digging up tool or evidence with shovels and, hand spades, and that's not, it is called a chain of evidence for a reason, right? So the very first person that sees this, there is just a very descriptive trail that is essentially the birth certificate of a piece of evidence, right? Hey, Lizzie, you are going to have a chain of command. The chain of evidence is going to tell you where it was located logistically. They're also going to have other identifying characteristics from the scene, like how far is this piece of evidence from the tree, right? They'll have descriptive attributes that they'll put in with the chain of evidence. Now, the very first thing you do before you touch any evidence is you got to start the chain of command paperwork. Not only that, but it has to be correctly photographed in the angles and attempt to try to capture this evidence in its organic state for the court in a criminal proceeding. Hey, Monkey Mar, this is not a situation where you go around picking up evidence out of the forest and saying, oh, this is Summerwell's toy. Very well could be. But what you've done is you now have polluted the chain of evidence on that, right? Hey, lovely to see you, Monkey. That is not helpful, right? You do not bring a dog that has no specific training other than the nose that God gave them to go into areas that have potential, evidentiary value. You cannot send an untrained dog into those areas to trample all over the scent that's there, so on and so forth, right? Like, let me tell you this. If you are at a site, and I heard this out of one of the mounds, I think it was the lady with the video. She said, definitely mounds of dirt here. No footprints. They've been washed away. Madam, if you're not law enforcement and you're close enough to a scene that you think has real, actual evidence, and you can tell, you're close enough to tell that there's no footprints, you're too fucking close. If you don't know how to operate a 30-meter crane that builds the tops of buildings and stuff, you don't have no business sitting in a 30-meter crane cockpit. Okay? I'm not a forensic analyst. I'm not. What I am is someone with compassion and a heart and common sense, right? You do not. If doing what was done and we saw done was the standard protocol, then what you'd be seeing all over America is when forensic teams and crime scenes pull up to a residence or a location to do some sort of hunt for evidence, you would just see John Q. citizenry. Oh, get out of the way, Mr. CSI. I know how to do this too. No, you do not. No, you do not. So with that being said, guys, we understand that searchers have their hearts in the right place, but what you're actually doing is a detriment. It is a disservice to this case by going out, bringing animals that can they just tear up the scene forensically for other dogs. Common sense is a superpower these days. I'm going to go on, and I just don't want to this morning. Guys, if you're not a fucking cop, don't touch any fucking evidence. If you're not a fucking cop, don't take leads upon yourself to go out there in the world and try to find some sort of exculpatory evidence. Right now, there's also, or inculpatory, right? Because we also now it's already being talked about that these folks that are out there, I believe, doing a genuine service, they're out there now. It's being reported either suppressing evidence or adding evidence. So we just don't. I don't even know what that means. Just not a slick. So anyways, guys, that's what it is, right? If you're not a cook, stay out of the kitchen, right? If you work at Burger King, you don't come and clock in at Taco Bell, right? If you're a drag car racer, you're not flying airplanes, right? Hoo-ah, smash that like button, y'all. So let's stay where God wants us to be. Let's not venture into where we want to be, because when we venture into where we want to be, probably there's a force of people that don't want or don't need us there. So we are really creating an issue now, not only with just the verbal statements and the fuckery that goes along with that. We are now actually tainting potential physical evidence. You do understand that without pertinent physical evidence in a lot of cases, it's flimsy and they go away, right? So listen, Jennifer, there is no such thing as a professional that comes on YouTube and shows John Q. citizenry the wrong ways in order to talk about these cases, to handle evidence, to victim bash, to victim bully, to even be involved in secondary victimization. What that means is that if you are unaware of these dynamics, you're in a percentile of America that cannot distinguish fact from fiction, right? So 84%, right? 84% percentile in America. 84% of Americans can't distinguish the difference between fact and opinion. That leaves 14%, 15%, 16% with the plus and minuses of people that can actually look at things and dictate to themselves, hey, this is misinformation, or hey, this is bullshit, right? Guess what? If you see somebody laying on the side of the road and they're all twisted up from a motorcycle accident, do you immediately jump in and start rendering first aid and CPR? No. The only thing that you can do is call the police and stay the fuck out the way. And with that, I bid you all a wonderful, God-filled, faith-based Sunday. Remember, guys, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. And remember, guys, if you are not a trained, certified CSI tech working for any law enforcement in any county or jurisdiction, don't touch shit that doesn't belong to you. God bless.